even for someone like you that, is so plugged into this, these 4 days are just the longest, most awful 4 days, I think, practically in our country's history. It's almost extraordinary, the wreckage that he's created already.
The wholesale pardons of January 6th defendants is an obscenity. It is so deeply disrespectful of the victims of those crimes. And I don't just mean the 140 police officers. Everybody in the Capitol that day who was trying to certify the election's results is a victim. The American people are the victim because these folks tried to end our democracy. And can I just talk about one defendant in particular, because this highlights some of the damage Donald Trump is doing to America. A guy named Daniel Ball. He is a defendant who was convicted. Here's what he was convicted of. He worked with rioters to violently push against police outside the Lower West Terrace entrance. And when their efforts failed, he threw an explosive device into the entrance and it detonated on 25 officers. He was pardoned on Tuesday. And guess what, Steph? He was arrested on Wednesday on federal firearms charges, not to mention he's got priors for domestic violence, battery by strangulation, and battering resisting law enforcement officers with violence. Donald Trump is not making America great again. He is making America dangerous again, and he's doing it intentionally and knowingly.
Yeah, by the way, he's always accusing other countries of emptying their violent criminal, jails out. Guess who's the only country doing that? Us. Yeah. Emptying violent criminals out into our streets.
Mexico's going to build a wall to keep us out.
Yeah. I know. Did you see yesterday? A reporter asked him, one of these defendants you just pardoned, stuck a officer in the neck with a stun gun. And Trump's like, oh, I didn't know that. We'll look into that. I don't know. I'm like, you saw the reporting. He just said, F it. Just release them all. Yep. Like, this is what this is going to be like. Just pure chaos. I mean,
it's a recruiting tool, Steph. This is a recruiting tool for Donald Trump. Next time he intends to engage in lawlessness, all of these people are already standing back and standing by and will be this ugly, violent militia ready to answer his criminal call again. It's no secret what he's doing.
Now, it was almost too much pleasure for me all at once. You on Nicole Wallace yesterday. Okay. Nicole, that's my jam. But I have to, so you wrote a piece. I don't think I've ever disagreed with you. And if I were straight and you weren't married, we would have such great makeup sex about this piece.
Oh my God. Stop it.
Okay. I understand as a person of the law, but your point and Adam Schiff's point about pardons. But you wrote a piece about it. You said you can be sure Trump will follow Biden's preemptive pardons precedent. Well, he was going to anyway. Would be my point. I understand your point. If we still lived in a world of law and order and not complete lawlessness, right? But I just thought I wanted to ask you, because I don't know if you saw it yesterday. Trump pretty much implied that he might target Biden. I mean, to me proves Biden's point entirely.
Yeah.
So you said Biden's pardoning the innocent could spark a democracy-damaging cycle of pardons by Trump and presidents to come. I think he was going to do this anyway, and I know what you mean. Like, where do we go now? We're in a completely... But you just said Biden's pardon will provide only limited protection. The pardon can still be nefariously audited. They can be criminally investigated, even if they can't be prosecuted. They can be dragged before Congress. I get your point that that he is so vindictive. He will still try to make people's lives... I was surprised. You said he could order officials to summarily and unlawfully detain Liz Cheney, for example, and Trump couldn't be prosecuted for said unlawful decision. I mean, that's how lawless a territory we're in, right? With you're talking about his immunity that the Supreme Court has given him.
The Supreme Court gave him the power of lawlessness and a blueprint regarding how to use it. Just unlawfully detain your political opponents, order your DOJ or your military officials to do so, and then pardon them for implementing your unlawful directives. And the majority of the Supreme Court justices said that's all fine. And you cannot touch or investigate or look behind a president's exercise of those two core constitutional powers, the power to direct his DOJ and his military and the power to issue pardons. That's why this is so dangerous. Yeah. And yes, it feels good. I don't want any people wrongfully prosecuted. But as I say, it provides limited protection for these folks because he can send the federal government after them in 10 other ways short of criminally prosecuting them. And, you know, the other problem, Steph, is I hate to say this, but if one person was vindictively prosecuted, whether it's Liz Cheney or Jack Smith or Joe Biden, the federal bench in D.C., I believe, would stand strong. They're loyal to the rule of law and the Constitution, and they would not let those cases go through the court system.
Unless we get a Judge Cannon. I mean, that's the problem. I know you said, in my opinion, it would be far better to let Trump bring vindictive prosecutions only to have the federal court judges strongly reject them. I just think we've lost faith all the way up to the Supreme Court. I mean, look at you highlighted Judge Cannon does yet another favor for Trump, tells DOJ not to give Congress Smith's report on Trump's classified documents case, which I don't know what's more important to national security or what could be a higher, a reason to do this. But that's what I'm afraid of, is we're going to be playing whack-a-mole with it. I hope it's not a Trump judge.
I'm afraid of corrupt judges as well. But I think the one thing that we learned from the 60-plus cases that were brought attacking the results of the 2020 election is that every single judge, including all the Trump-appointed judges, told, Rudy and Sidney and the rest of them, go the you-know-what away because there is no evidence supporting this garbage. And Steph, just yesterday, a Ronald Reagan appointed
I was just going to say
40 years on the battle. I don't mean to jump ahead of where you're going.
No, exactly.
But for gosh sakes, a Reagan appointed judge just told Donald Trump, his administration, and his DOJ lawyers, what you did trying to revoke birthright citizenship is, quote, blatantly unconstitutional. I believe the federal trial judiciary will hold strong. Of course, all bets are off once this stuff gets up to the Supreme Court.
That's exactly my point. So, this is what Trump said on Fox. He taunted Biden over the pardons. He said he didn't give himself a pardon. He didn't give some other people a pardon that needed it. Well, of course, leave it to him to target Biden or anybody else that he didn't pardon. He said, the funny thing, the sad thing is he didn't give himself a pardon. And if you look at it, it all had to do with him. And then he lies again. He said, I heard Schiff went to him and just begged him for a pardon because Schiff's a crook. Schiff's a crooked guy. He very, very obviously publicly is the opposite. So I don't want a pardon. And he agrees with you on that. But it just, he will lie and lie and lie.
Listen, if President Biden wanted to really protect folk, he would have needed to pardon everybody who's ever gotten, sideways with Donald Trump. And how many millions of people who care about the rule of law and the Constitution, would that include?
Yeah.
It's so, and here, let me say this. We don't know if Joe Biden did or did not issue himself a pardon. There is no requirement that a pardon be announced publicly in order for it to be effective. I'm not suggesting he did, but let Trump try to prosecute somebody who is innocent. I think a co-equal branch of government, the judiciary, cramming that down his throat, figuratively speaking, is important for the reliability of our institutions.
And how hilarious and on point is it for today's Republican Party that the only reason they might not target Cassidy Hutchinson is because all these skeevy, pervy Republicans were apparently sexting her, and those would get released, right? If they subpoena her or whatever, right?
Welcome to the age of governmental lawlessness in America.
Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, it's the other thing Trump said again, lied. Benny Thompson destroyed along with that unselect committee, destroyed all the work that took place over 2 years. You know why? Because it showed I was right. That is available online now. They did not destroy anything, but this is just the lawless, truthless world that we're forced to navigate, Glenn,
Steph,
for 4 years.
The next 4 years, we are going to be living in George Orwell's 1984, with the Department of Justice becoming the Ministry of Truth. And every time the government, cuts our chocolate rations, they will announce that chocolate rations have been increased again. That is what we are in for.
Some slivers of light. Ed Martin, U.S. Attorney for D.C., declined to drop charges against some J6 defendants for fleeing after Trump gave them pardons. He said he was not moving to dismiss charges for failure to appear. This guy and his sister were initially arrested for assaulting officers, theft of government property, entering a restricted building, and violent entry. So they won't get charged for those things. But also at least one judge is going, but you can't just flee. You have to, even if you're pardoned. I mean, I think you're right. It's going to be like, can I say fingers in a dike? You know what I mean. I'm talking about.
Yes, you can, but only in certain...
You know what I mean,
Yeah.
in a justice way,
Right.
Glenn. But that's what it's going to be. The people that believe in truth and justice and everything else Superman stood for, the American way. Right?
Yeah, Steph, and my blood pressure is already up this morning, so I'm not even going to talk about Ed Martin, the new U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, a Stop the Steal guy who was at the Capitol reportedly on. He is now the acting U.S. Attorney in Washington, D.C. This is about as bad as it gets.
How about this? The Justice Department memo that began circulating as part of Trump's new immigration agenda stunned one legal analyst who called it a very heavy-handed approach to law enforcement. The memo has sent shockwaves through the legal and political world. It gives federal prosecutors across the country the green light to investigate local prosecutors for obstructing immigration enforcement. The expert reiterated how extraordinary it was for the DOJ to actually threaten locals with prosecution. I mean, I can't think of a more divisive human in our history. So he's going to try to turn federal government.
This is governing by fear, intimidation, and threats, and they're hoping everybody will just lay down and let the Trump administration do its worst. Yeah. And the only question is everybody going to lay down, or are we going to keep standing up and fighting? I mean, I know where I come out on that.
Yeah. California Attorney General Rob Bonta said the Trump administration was employing a scare tactic following a recent memo that outlined pathways to prosecution for state officials, blah, blah, blah. The president is attempting to intimidate and bully state and local law enforcement into carrying out his mass deportation agenda. California has a law, remember those? That gives local law enforcement leeway in not complying with federal immigration authorities, including in sanctuary cities. He said the state's law does not prevent officials from conducting their immigration enforcement, but he said it also prevents local officials from having to do the jobs of the federal government. He said it does not prevent federal agencies from conducting immigration enforcement themselves. What it says is they can't make us do their jobs for them. I mean, that's a California state law, right?
And Steph, here's a point of light that I think everybody can hold fast to. 22 states attorneys general brought suit the minute Donald Trump picked up his little pen and signed that executive order trying to revoke the Constitution's guarantee of birthright citizenship. And within 24 hours, a Reagan-appointed judge said, hey, Trump, what you just did is blatantly unconstitutional. And he said, where the hell were the lawyers when Trump was signing this thing? Points of light. The states are going to step up. The nonprofits, the ACLUs and other organizations are going to step up. They're going to fight battles in court. And guess what? Donald Trump is going to have an ugly batch of lawyers who are going to get crushed in court over and over and over and over again. And I feel compelled to, as a footnote, add, but the Supreme Court. Well,
I was just going to say that here's a sliver of light before we go. Could hurt. Trump said to be in for blowback from Supreme Court with overreach. Who knows, right? It could actually hurt Donald Trump's case before the Supreme Court because they may see this as a power grab. Well, we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see. Look, the Supreme Court has ignored the text of the Constitution twice to Donald Trump's advantage. Are they willing to do it again? We'll see.
Yeah. Glenn, Justice Warrior.
Yes.
I feel better knowing you're out there.